I stood in the doorway of what had been my daughter's childhood bedroom, looking at the boxes I'd spent the last 3 days packing. The room still smelled faintly of her perfume, that lavender scent she'd worn since high school. Emma had been gone for 2 weeks now, taken by a drunk driver on her way home from work. 2 weeks that felt like both an eternity and a single, endless moment. Robert. I turned to find my son-in-law Connor standing in the hallway, his expression carefully neutral. He was still wearing his suit from the funeral that morning, though he'd loosened his tie. "I know this is difficult timing," he began, and something in his tone made my chest tighten. "But Rachel and I have been talking, and we think it's best if you started looking for your own place. We can give you 60 days. That should be enough time to find something suitable." I stared at him. Rachel was Connor's sister. I'd met her exactly twice, both times at holiday dinners where she'd spent most of the meal on her phone. Emma had never been particularly close to her. 60 days, I repeated slowly. "We buried my daughter this morning, Connor. I understand that, Robert. I really do. But you have to understand our position. This is our house now, and Rachel's moving to Toronto for work. She needs a place to stay while she gets settled, and this room—" He gestured vaguely at the bedroom behind me. "Well, it makes the most sense. I'd moved in with Emma and Connor 3 years ago, after my wife Margaret passed. The doctors had called it early-onset dementia, though she was only 62. I'd sold our house in Ottawa to pay for her care, and when she was gone, Emma insisted I come stay with them. "You took care of Mom," she'd said. "Now let us take care of you." I'd helped with the mortgage, helped with repairs. I'd renovated their entire basement last summer, installed new plumbing, built custom shelving. Connor worked long hours as an investment analyst, and I'd been there for Emma when she needed someone. "I see," I said quietly. Connor seemed to relax slightly, mistaking my calm for acceptance. "I'm glad you understand. It's nothing personal, Robert. It's just, circumstances have changed. They certainly have." "Good. Well, I'll let you get back to packing." He started to turn away, then paused. "Oh, and Rachel will be moving in next weekend, so if you could have your things out of this room by Friday, that would be helpful." I watched him walk down the hallway toward the master bedroom, the room he'd shared with my daughter. He closed the door behind him without looking back. I stood there for a long moment, listening to the house settle around me. Then I pulled out my phone and made a call. "Hey Bill, it's Robert Chen. Sorry to bother you on a Saturday evening." "Yes, the funeral was this morning. Thank you. Listen, I need a favor. Do you still have that cargo van?" 3 hours later, I was loading the last of my belongings into Bill's van. My old friend from the construction company where I'd worked for 35 years hadn't asked questions, just shown up with the van and a thermos of coffee. "You got a place to stay?" Bill asked as we secured the final box. "The Holiday Inn on Queen Street for now. I'll figure out something more permanent next week." Connor appeared on the front porch, frowning. "Robert, what's going on? I said you had 60 days. "I know what you said." I climbed into the passenger seat of the van, but I decided not to wait. His frown deepened. "But you don't have to leave tonight. I didn't mean—" "Have a good evening, Connor." Bill pulled away from the curb, and I didn't look back. The Holiday Inn room was small but clean. I sat on the edge of the bed, Emma's photograph in my hands, the one from her university graduation, her smile bright and proud. I'd taken that photo. I'd been there for every important moment of her life. And now she was gone. My phone buzzed. A text from Connor. "Robert, let's talk about this. Come back. You don't need to stay in a hotel." I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning, I woke early and drove to the house. I still had a key. Connor hadn't thought to ask for it back. I let myself in quietly. Connor's car was gone from the driveway. He played squash every Sunday morning at the club downtown. I went straight to Emma's home office, the small room off the kitchen where she'd managed her graphic design business. I knew what I was looking for. Emma had been meticulous about record keeping, everything filed and labeled. It took me less than 10 minutes to find it. The folder was labeled House Documents. Important. Inside were the mortgage papers, the deed, the home inspection report from when they'd bought the place 5 years ago. And there, paperclipped to the purchase agreement, was the document I remembered. My contribution to the down payment. $60,000. Emma had insisted on drawing up a formal agreement, making me a partial owner of the property. "Dad, you're not just giving us charity," she'd said. "This is an investment. If anything ever happens to me, this protects you. I'd signed it thinking I'd never need it. That Emma would outlive me by decades. I took photos of every page with my phone, then carefully returned the folder to its place. As I was leaving the office, something caught my eye. A business card, partially hidden under Emma's desk calendar. Harrison Price, attorney at law. Estate planning and probate. I pocketed the card. On my way out, I noticed Connor's laptop sitting open on the kitchen counter. The screen was locked, but there was a post-it note stuck to the edge with a password written on it. Connor had never been particularly security conscious. I hesitated for only a moment before typing in the password. The screen came to life, showing his email inbox. I scrolled through quickly, looking for anything related to the house, to Emma's estate. There. An email thread between Connor and Rachel, dated 3 days after Emma's death. Rachel: so, the house is yours now? Completely? Connor: technically, yes. Emma's name was on the deed too, but as her spouse, it transfers to me. There's some probate stuff to handle, but the lawyer says it's straightforward. Rachel: what about Robert? Connor: what about him? He's just been staying here. He doesn't own anything. Rachel: perfect, because I really need to get out of my apartment. My landlord's a nightmare. When can I move in? Connor: give me a couple weeks to sort things out. I need to figure out what to do about Robert first. Can't just kick him out immediately. Bad optics. I took photos of the email thread. Then I kept scrolling. There was another email, this one from 2 weeks before Emma's accident. Connor, to someone named Jessica Talbot: can't wait to see you Friday. He's working late again, so we'll have the place to ourselves until at least 10. Bring that wine you mentioned. My hands were shaking as I took the photo. I closed the laptop carefully, making sure to leave everything exactly as I'd found it. Back at the hotel, I spread the photos across the bed and stared at them. The ownership documents, the email thread with Rachel, the message to Jessica. I picked up my phone and called the number on Harrison Price's card. Price Law Office. Hello, my name is Robert Chen. I'd like to speak with Mr. Price about a probate matter. It concerns my late daughter, Emma Chen Morrison. There was a pause. Mr. Chen: I'm actually handling Mrs. Morrison's estate. Your son-in-law Connor hired us shortly after her passing. I see. And has the estate been settled yet? We're still in the initial stages. There are some complexities regarding property ownership that we're working through. May I ask what your specific interest is? I'm part owner of the house, I said calmly. I have documentation showing a $60,000 investment in the property with a formal ownership agreement. I believe this may be relevant to the probate process. Another pause, longer this time. Mr. Chen: I think we should meet. Are you available tomorrow morning? I am. 10 o'clock at my office. And Mr. Chen, bring those documents. Harrison Price was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with the kind of earnest expression that suggested he'd gone into law because he actually wanted to help people. His office was lined with legal texts and family photos. Mr. Chen, thank you for coming in. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. I have to admit, this is an unusual situation. I handed him the printed copies of the ownership documents. He studied them carefully, his expression growing more serious. Your son-in-law didn't mention any of this, he said finally. In fact, he specifically stated that he was the sole owner of the property, inherited through marriage. That's not accurate. No, it's not. Price set down the papers. Mr. Chen, I need to be candid with you. When Connor hired me, something felt off. He was pushing to settle the estate very quickly, before all assets had been properly inventoried. He seemed particularly eager to establish sole ownership of the house. He wants to move his sister in. He gave me 60 days to leave. Price's jaw tightened. When did your daughter pass? 2 weeks ago yesterday. He told me about the 60 days on the day of her funeral. Jesus. Price leaned back in his chair. Okay. Here's the situation. Based on these documents, you have a legitimate ownership stake in the property. Connor can't simply evict you, and he certainly can't claim sole ownership. We need to halt the probate process until this is properly resolved. There's something else, I said. I showed him the photos of the email threads. I found these on his laptop. Price read them, his expression darkening. He was having an affair. It would appear so. Mr. Chen, this changes things significantly. If Connor was unfaithful during the marriage, it could affect his inheritance rights under Ontario law. And if he deliberately concealed assets or misrepresented the estate, Price looked up at me. How did you access his laptop? I still have a key to the house. I let myself in while he was out. That's potentially problematic from a legal standpoint. Price drummed his fingers on the desk, but the emails themselves are legitimate evidence of his state of mind and his relationship with his sister. The affair, if proven, is also relevant. What do you recommend? I recommend we bring this to the probate court. All of it. The ownership documents, the premature eviction, the concealed relationship with this Jessica Talbot. I'll need to withdraw as Connor's attorney due to conflict of interest, but I'd like to represent you instead, if you're willing. I'm willing. Price nodded. Good. First thing Monday morning, I'm filing a motion to freeze the estate and challenge Connor's claims. This is going to get messy, Mr. Chen. Are you prepared for that? I thought of Emma's smile in that graduation photo. Thought of Connor's casual dismissal of me on the day we buried my daughter. Thought of him planning to move his sister into Emma's childhood bedroom before her side of the bed had even gone cold. I'm prepared, I said. The motion was filed Monday at 9 a.m. By noon, my phone was ringing. Connor, Robert, what the hell is this? My lawyer just called. You're challenging the estate? You're claiming you own part of my house? It's not your house, Connor. It was Emma's house too, and I have a legal stake in it. This is insane. You can't just... I can, and I am. You wanted me out, Connor. You made that very clear. So I'm protecting my interests. Your interests? You're living in a hotel. What interests do you have? $60,000 worth, according to the documents I signed with Emma. Documents you apparently forgot to mention to your lawyer. There was a long silence. When Connor spoke again, his voice was cold. You're going to regret this, old man. Perhaps. But I doubt it more than you'll regret trying to erase my daughter's memory before she was even in the ground for a week. I hung up. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings and court filings. Price was thorough, building a case that painted Connor as an unfaithful husband who had misrepresented the estate for personal gain. The ownership documents were ironclad. Emma had been careful about that. But it was the affair that really changed things. Jessica Talbot, it turned out, was Connor's colleague at the investment firm. When Price's investigator contacted her, she initially denied everything, but when presented with the email evidence and told she might be called to testify, she cracked. Connor had been seeing her for 8 months. They'd been planning to go away together the weekend after Emma died, a trip to Montreal that Connor had already booked. He'd canceled it after the accident, but the reservation confirmation was still in his email. 8 months, while Emma was working late on design projects to help pay the mortgage, while I was cooking dinner for the two of them, fixing their plumbing, being the family that Connor was actively betraying. The probate hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks after I'd walked out. I sat in the courtroom beside Harrison Price, watching Connor and his new lawyer, a sharp-dressed woman who looked like she billed $500 an hour, take their seats across the aisle. Rachel was there too, sitting behind Connor. She wouldn't meet my eyes. The judge was a woman in her 60s. Justice Patricia Morrison, no relation to Connor, despite the shared name. She reviewed the case files with meticulous attention, asking pointed questions of both sides. Mr. Morrison, she said, looking at Connor over her reading glasses. Can you explain why you failed to disclose Mr. Chen's ownership stake when filing the initial probate documents? Connor's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client was not aware of the existence of these documents. They were not included in the primary estate files, and Mr. Morrison had no reason to believe. The documents were in your daughter's office, the judge interrupted, looking at the file. In a folder clearly labeled House Documents. Important. Are you telling this court that you never reviewed your late wife's important documents before filing for probate? Connor shifted uncomfortably. It was an oversight, Your Honor. I was grieving. I wasn't thinking clearly. Yet you were thinking clearly enough to ask your father-in-law to vacate the premises within 60 days, on the very day of your wife's funeral? Silence. And you were thinking clearly enough to invite your sister to move into your late wife's childhood bedroom less than a week after her death? Connor's lawyer tried to object, but the judge held up her hand. I've reviewed all the evidence presented, including the email correspondence between Mr. Morrison and his sister and the documented relationship with Miss Talbot. She looked directly at Connor. "Mr. Morrison, your conduct in this matter has been, frankly, appalling. You have attempted to defraud your father-in-law of his legitimate property rights. You have misrepresented the estate to this court, and you have shown a callous disregard for both your late wife's memory and her family." She turned to me. "Mr. Chen, I'm ruling in your favor. Your ownership stake in the property is legitimate and will be recognized. Additionally, given Mr. Morrison's conduct and his extramarital relationship, I'm ordering a full review of the estate division. Any assets that would have gone to Mr. Morrison as a grieving spouse will be reconsidered in light of his infidelity." Connor's face went white. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "Mr. Morrison, you are ordered to allow Mr. Chen to remain in the residence for as long as he wishes, or until the property is sold and the proceeds divided according to ownership stakes. If you attempt to evict him or make his living situation untenable, you will be held in contempt. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor," Connor said, his voice barely audible. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. I didn't move back into the house. The thought of living under the same roof as Connor, of walking past Emma's empty bedroom every day, was unbearable. Instead, Price helped me negotiate a buyout. Connor paid me $90,000, my original investment plus appreciation, and I signed over my ownership stake. I used part of the money to put a down payment on a small condo in Ottawa, near where Margaret and I had lived for so many years. The rest I put into a trust for Emma's niece, my granddaughter from my son David, who lived in Vancouver. Emma had adored little Sophie. She would have wanted her to have something. The legal fees came out of Connor's pocket. That was part of the settlement, too. 6 months after the hearing, I heard through Bill that Connor had sold the house. He and Jessica Talbot had moved into a downtown apartment together. Rachel had found her own place. I thought about Emma sometimes, wondering what she would have thought of all of it. She'd believed in fairness, in standing up for what was right. She'd drawn up those ownership documents because she wanted to protect me, wanted to make sure I'd be taken care of. She'd done that. Even after she was gone, her careful planning had protected me. But more than that, she'd taught me something I'd almost forgotten in my grief, that I was worth protecting, that I deserved respect, that my dignity and my rights mattered, regardless of my age or my loss. Connor had seen an old man, alone and grieving, easy to push aside. He'd made the mistake of thinking that quiet meant weak, that grief meant helpless. He'd learned otherwise. I keep Emma's graduation photo on my mantle now, in the condo. Sometimes I look at it and tell her about my day, about the volunteer work I've started doing with Habitat for Humanity, about the carpentry classes I'm teaching at the community center, about the friends I've reconnected with. I tell her that I'm okay, that she doesn't need to worry about me. And I think, somehow, she knows. If there's a lesson in all of this, it's this. Never let grief make you forget your worth. Never let someone's attempt to diminish you go unchallenged, especially when they're counting on your silence or your pain to make you compliant. Respect isn't optional. Dignity isn't negotiable. And sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should worry about the most, because quiet doesn't mean powerless. It just means we're thinking before we act. And when we do act, we make it count.